Sri Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I want to say something. I want to look at a bunch of stuff, but I'm really nobody, you know. I mean, I don't have any position. I'm not the head of anything or the leader of anything, or I'm not even socially active at all. I'm just chanting Hare Krishna and trying to remember Krishna, hear about Krishna, depend on Krishna, surrender to Krishna, and go back home, back to Godhead. So I'm really not I have no special talents, no special abilities. I'm not famous in any way, not particularly beautiful. I have just enough to live, so I'm not rich. I'm not super renounced. And not particularly all that, intelligent. But I am intelligent enough to turn my attention toward topics of Krishna consciousness, and to appreciate the path of devotional service. Hey, good morning. Hare Krishna Lance. So, I just want to clear that out of there. And I'm really nobody, and it's a great relief. You're nobody. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So if someone like me, a complete nobody, can practice Krishna consciousness and get some relief from the material maze and illusion, anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody. But I do want to look at some things. Hare Krishna. First I want to look at it's the 10 offenses to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There are 10 offenses. And this comes from the Padma Purana, which is composed by Srila Vyasadeva, who really is behind the Vedas. The Bhagavad Gita comes from Vyasadeva. It's the centerpiece of his Mahabharata. The Srimad Bhagavatam comes from Srila Vyasadeva, which is the ripened fruit of all. It's the natural commentary on the Vedas, which Atharva Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and there's one more. Anyway, there are 4 Vedas. He's behind all the Vedic scriptures. And then after that, different devotees have written their commentaries and their explanations and have elaborated over time. But that's the basis of Srila Vyasadeva. He's considered the literary incarnation of Krishna. He's the Krishna incarnated to present these Vedic scriptures. And anyone in line from Srila Vyasadeva gets to sit on the Vyasasana and speak from the Vedic literatures and the commentaries related to the Vedas. This is the disciplic line. So this comes from one of his writings called the Padma Purana. The Puranas are considered the oldest, very, very old. So this is the Padma Purana, and it's the 10 offenses in chanting the holy names of the Lord. And the very first offense, which we have to consider being very significant since it's the very first one, is to blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. To blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. That's the very first offense. So it's very significant. One of the great mercies of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that he doesn't accept offense. He's appearing as a devotee, and he doesn't personally accept offense. So his great mercy is like that. Incredible mercy. That's why before chanting the Maha Mantra, the instruction is to chant Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. So that if there is some offensive mentality, if someone does have this offensive mentality toward devotees who are dedicating their lives to chanting Hare Krishna and spreading the Hare Krishna movement, then they'll still be able to get some benefit from the chanting. But it doesn't mean it isn't an offense. It is an offense. And offenses is what blocks the path of devotion from actually getting the full benefit of the chanting. So Lord Chaitanya, he's so merciful. Okay, so you have this mentality, this offensive mentality. Well, take shelter of me and I won't accept the offense. But it doesn't mean you'll get the full benefit of the chanting. Because to offend devotees is very serious, and things happen. All kinds of things happen when offenses, because Krishna doesn't, just ask Prahlad about that, When there are offenses toward devotees, the Lord gets very angry. But because he's appearing as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's not accepting that, and he's just, okay, we'll just keep chanting. But it doesn't mean you get the full benefit of the chanting. But the Lord will give himself to you in his supreme personality of Godhead, and you'll enter into his planet and be able to associate with him in loving relationships amongst the other devotees. Why? Because you're offending the other devotees. So you can't enter in. If you're offending the other servants of the Lord, no matter how they're situated, if you're offending them, how can you enter into an atmosphere where everyone is serving that you're just a disturbance? You're a big disturbance. Because of that offensive mentality. I'm not aiming this at anyone in particular. I'm talking about principles of devotional service and the dynamics of how it works for anyone. For me, if I'm offending devotees, I can't enter into that atmosphere where they're serving. And my own benefit of getting the full benefit of the chanting is blocked. I can't get it. So I'm stuck. So that's what it is. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord. It doesn't say the pure devotees. It says devotees. Any devotee who's serving to try to propagate the chanting of the holy names, however, whatever their realizations are. To offend them is going to block. We won't be able to get the full benefit. Just be blocked. This is really serious stuff. But Lord Chaitanya's mercy is such that you'll be blocked, but you won't have to maybe get some really serious reactions, because there are serious reactions for offending devotees. things happen, on the material plane. Get diseases, body break out in sores. There are some things described in Chaitanya Charitamrita where although the Lord doesn't accept the offense, still there were some reactions. The famous one is Durvasa Muni, who he was very powerful mystic yogi. Actually, it was Duryodhana that sent him. He knew that Ambarish Maharaj was, that was Yudhisthira. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know why Durvasa Muni visited Ambarish. But anyway, Ambarish was fasting. There's a reason why he visited. He was just caused a problem. Someone sent him, maybe Indra. I can't remember. But Maharaj Ambarish was very powerful, pious king, and he was fasting for 1 year. Durvasa Muni appeared on the scene. He's a very powerful mystic yogi, and with all his disciples, appeared on the scene. And when someone comes to visit, then like a king, it's his duty to serve the guests first, especially a guest like a great mystic yogi like Durvasa Muni. You have to serve him, you have to offer him washes, you have to give him food, you have to make him comfortable along with all his disciples, and give him a proper reception. But it was time for Maharaj Ambarish to break his fast. See, if you do a fast, it has to be broken at a specific time. And the specific time for breaking the fast had come. And here's Durvasa Muni. So to eat or take food before serving your guest is considered a great offense. So Maharaj Ambarish was stuck in an awkward position. The effects of the fast for the whole year he needed to break that at that moment. But here's Durvasa Muni, and he has to feed him, so he can't take anything. So while Durvasa and his disciples were bathing in the river, getting ready to be fed, Maharaj Ambarish took a little water. Because that sometimes is considered breaking a fast, sometimes not. So after consulting with his advisors, his spiritual guides, they said, well, if you take a little water, it's not really breaking the fast, but it is breaking the fast. So you'll be okay. The effects of your whole year of austerity will still be. You'll get the benefit. But Durvasa Muni considered that he had broken the fast before feeding him. He became very angry. He considered it a great insult that he wasn't honored for his power and his mystic whatever. And he put some kind of curse on Maharaj Ambarish that he should die or some horrible thing, because he was so powerful that everything was extreme. His cursing, his blessing, everything was extreme because he was like this powerful mystic. But Krishna wasn't going to tolerate that. Vishnu, no. Sorry, this is my devotee. He was fasting for me. He wasn't fasting for some material thing. He was fasting for me. And I'm not going to, he was doing that as an act of devotion to please me. I'm not going to put up with that. So Sudarshan Chakra was coming after Durvasa. Durvasa Muni could feel the heat of it. He could feel it coming. He's mystic powers. He could feel the Sudarshan Chakra coming after him. So he started running by his mystic potencies. He ran to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva said, I can't help you. That's the Sudarshan. I think, did he go to Brahma? I don't know. He went to all the powerful demigods like that. And finally, you have to go to Vishnu. And amazingly, he was able to go to Vaikuntha. He was so powerful. He was able to meditate his way and have darshan with Vishnu. And Vishnu said, well, there's nothing I can do because this is what happens when you offend a devotee. This is what happens. The only way to get free from this is you have to fall at the feet of the devotee and beg to be forgiven for offending them. That's the only way. Krishna, so Durvasa, I mean, he didn't want that Sudarshan, you know. So he approached Maharaj Ambarish and asked to be forgiven. And that way he made some advancement spiritually, obviously. But there's things that happen when you offend devotees. So that's that first offense, to blaspheme the devotees. And the others, they kind of fall in line to consider the names of demigods like Shiva or Brahma equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Disobey the orders of the spiritual master. What orders? Which orders? Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Accept everything favorable for Krishna consciousness. Reject everything unfavorable. Chant Hare Krishna. Avoid sinful activities. Hare Krishna. I was looking at that sinful activity of intoxication, and I was like, well, why is it so bad? I mean, it's just kind of like fun, you know. It's not really hurting anyone, unless, of course, someone gets an addiction, then it's a problem. But why not, you know, take a little something every now and then, you know, drink a beer, a glass of wine, yeah, smoke a joint, you know, why not? It's not hurting anyone, you know, just relax a little bit, chill out, you know. What I'm seeing is because intoxicants, they block the reason it's like a chill out thing and a fun thing is because it blocks access to the higher mental abilities. That's what it blocks it. So you can't really reason very well or think very well or very clearly. And it just feels good to be relieved from thinking and you know, oh, who cares, you know. So it's actually, it blocks the ability to what's been given specifically to human beings, this ability to analyze and reason and use the intelligence. So it's detrimental. It's very, even just a little bit, it's detrimental for devotional service. And number 4, blaspheme Vedic scriptures, or scriptures in pursuance of the Vedic version. Blaspheme the Vedic scriptures. It doesn't, I look at that and I don't see that it necessarily means like just desecrating them and they're no good, but I think also to minimize the value. Like to minimize the value of Bhagavad Gita. That's a kind of blasphemy. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken directly by the Lord. And to minimize that oh, that's some kind of lesser teaching, or we want to go to this higher stuff, you know. No, that's blaspheming the Vedic scriptures. Or the Bhagavatam, which is the light in this age of darkness, to minimize the value of that. That's a kind of blasphemy. It's a kind of blasphemy. To blaspheme the devotees, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures, it's not a good position for anyone. I say anyone. I'm looking at principles, not necessarily individuals. In general, I'm speaking in general, because these things are going on to one degree or another, all over the place. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination. Six, to give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. We understand the name of the Lord is the Lord himself, incarnated and sound. So, what's your interpretation? What do you think it means? No. It is, the holy name is Krishna. Hare Krishna. Interpretation finished. To commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. Yeah. Just go and do this stuff and then I'll chant and I'll be okay. Now that's different. It's different if there's an accidental slip or a fall down. That's different. In the Gita, Krishna says, Api chet siddharacharo, bhajate mam ananyabhak, something, something. And even if someone is engaging in devotional service, they're hearing, they're chanting, they're remembering Krishna, they're trying to serve Krishna, like that, and they slip into some nonsense thing, whatever. He says they're still to be considered saintly, and very soon they'll be corrected. Very soon they'll become free of that. So that's different than, having a game plan. I do that. It's like during the week I work really hard, and then on the weekend I have my recreation. So I do nonsense, and then I have the time when so I have time for my nonsense, and then I do my purification. No, make a life out of that, Yeah. No, that's not gonna work. Again, be blocked. Be blocked from the actual benefit of the holy name. Be blocked. Number 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. That it's a ritualistic activity. That it's meant for some fruitive result. I chant Hare Krishna, like abracadabra, I get a new car. Or I had a friend who was doing Namyo Renge Kyo. This was years ago. And they were quite, it's like it's related to a Buddhist, Japanese version of Buddha, something or other, some spiritual master of that culture gave that mantra, Namyo Renge Kyo. And the idea was you could just chant it and get whatever you want. It's okay. Namyo Renge Kyo, I want a house. Namyo Renge Kyo, I want a partner. Namyo Renge, I want money. So she was chanting like anything. Hare Krishna, Namyo Renge Kyo. Till she came to the temple and had prasadam, and then ended up marrying a devotee. So much for Namyo Renge Kyo. Maybe she was chanting Namyo Renge Kyo because she wanted to know the truth about life. Now that, if you want to do that, that might work. Hare Krishna. The activities in the temple are not meaningless ritualistic activities. Like for Balaram's appearance day, a couple days ago, they were doing some fire sacrifices, and Brahmins were reaffirming their vows to chant the Gayatri mantra and follow the Brahminical principles and engage in the service that Brahmins engage in, deity worship and giving classes and things like that. Temple, mostly around the deities and the temple functions. But those weren't rich. They're not ritualistic karmakanda activities. They're related to the spreading of the Krishna consciousness movement and the chanting of the holy names in an organized, structured way. They're not just meaningless rituals. They're actually, it was on YouTube, of course, because everything's on YouTube now. They had the camera focused on the little sacrificial arena, and the temple president, Mataji. She's a good temple president. She really is. She's like activities director. She really is. She was sitting there reaffirming her Brahminical vows, and another devotee was doing with the ghee. I realized, I had a little extra left over for buying groceries last week, and I went and I got a whole bunch of butter, because I know they make ghee and they're going to have all these programs. I went and I got a whole bunch of butter, cheap at Walmart, and I just brought it over to the temple. And I realized, that was probably, at least some of it, the butter that I brought. They made it into ghee. And he's pouring it into the fire, and chanting the mantras, And I was like, wow, that's probably, the butter I brought over. It was like, cool, But I was watching and I saw how they were all sitting around. And this was to honor Balaram's appearance. And then I was remembering that beautiful picture in Krishna book of Krishna's birthday ceremony. It's similar. And all the residents are there. Nanda's there, Yasoda's there, and the gopis are there. And they're performing a ritual ceremony. The ritual bathing of the newborn infant, Krishna. And they were doing the same thing. I tried to get a screenshot of it, but it disappeared too quick and I didn't get. It looked just like the painting. So these aren't ritualistic material things. It's all serving Krishna. Krishna's appearing in the deity so that the devotees can do these things. Because these are the things that, these kinds of services that go on in the spiritual world. It's completely transcendental. Now, whether they're all pure devotees that are doing, I don't know. Who knows the level of their actual, but they're doing the service. They have to be respected. That's that first. To blaspheme those devotees are dedicating their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. These temples aren't ordinary places. The deity is not just stone or marble or wood. It's a special incarnation of Krishna so that these activities can go on, just like a living Krishna book, one way or another. Anyway, that's how I see it's ecstatic stuff, Hare Krishna. Number 9. To instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. We say, well, why is that an offense to the holy name? To instruct the glories of the holy name. Aren't we supposed to be, helping people to understand Krishna consciousness and encouraging them to chant Hare Krishna? Why would that be an offense? A faithless person. Well, one thing that comes to mind is it puts them in a position of making offenses. If they're actually faithless, then all they can do is, if you try to tell them the glories of Godhead and transcendence, all they can do is make offense. They can't do anything else. So, building the faith of a faithless person, somehow or other, will allow them some access, at least at some point. So it may be better to do that with a faithless person, is to help, give them a little cookie offered to the deity, or you've got kind of some introductory literature, like Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, or maybe even Ishopanishad. It's kind of, I think it's hard to offend Ishopanishad because it is so, it's so broad, I think it's a great book to distribute, Ishopanishad. It really cuts through, people making offenses, because it's actually so scientific and logical. So it's a great book. But to try to help them get a little bit of faith. But the only thing they can do if they are actually faithless is to make an offense. No, a really elevated devotee like Srila Prabhupada, he was preaching, everybody was faithless. So a really advanced devotee is able to preach to the faithless. But you have to be like, a Srila Prabhupada to do it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Number 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Oh, yeah, number 9, instruct a faithless person. That reminds me of the famous story of my very wild friend who lives here, a very wild character. Just goes all day long driving through the streets with kirtans blasting out of his van, screaming at the top of his lungs. Anyway, he's pretty wild. But I really like what he shared. This one thing about how he was walking along. He said he had this realization that it was like, this is how he realized something by telling me this story. That it was, for him, it was like, he'd be walking along the path in a rather desolate place, and there'd be a big pit with a lot of people in it, and they'd be screaming, help me, help me, help me, help us, hey, get us out of here. And he wanted to help them. So he reached in to help, and they pulled him in. And now he's stuck in the pit, and he can't get out. So that's also something to consider in trying to preach to the faithless, is that if you're not really, really situated in transcendence, completely beyond the influence of the modes of material nature, completely identifying with the soul as the self, and actually in Krishna consciousness, you try to preach to the faithless, they can pull you in. And you have to have scriptural support. They can pull you into their faithlessness. Your faith can be shaken. So that's another thing about preaching to the faithless, is you end up in the pit with them. So the rest of his story is that he managed to get out. He managed to get out. And he was like, whew, not going there again. But he's walking along, and again, another pit. And more people screaming, help, help, get us out of here, get us out of here. So he still wants to help, but this time, He got a tree branch and he tied a rope around it, and he stretched the branch across the pit, dropped the rope down, and said, "Grab a hoe, get yourselves out." Hare Krishna. Just some thoughts on preaching to the faithless. Hare Krishna. Oh no, Lance has something here, but I don't know if I want to read it. And Krishna, he's speaking very sweet words. Before, when I was saying, I'm nothing, and he's saying, but not to me, you're Krishna. It's just sweet words. Lance is very supportive. Hare Krishna. He's always, go, go, go. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. He has this nice, friendly, loving mood, which is really sweet. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So that's the 10, looking at the 10 offenses. Always good to get a refresher on those. And if ever there's any question about hearing from someone, or you can always look at those and kind of take it as a yardstick. How does, how does this person's preaching match up to the 10 offenses? How does it? It's a good way to measure, not just others, but if I'm having some problem and some difficulty, okay, what's going on? Let me look at the 10 offenses. Usually it's the first one, offending someone. Usually it's just that first one. That's the biggie. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So we're almost done with the 3 modes of material nature, this chapter. And a couple more verses, but they have big purports. So maybe continue with it. Jai. Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated with purports, commentaries, word for word, very authoritative. Bhagavad Gita. And there are several editions. This is not a political statement. This is just, I like this edition because I ran through the streets with it for years, distributing to people, and just attached to it. And I'm not preaching to big college professors, so if every T isn't crossed and every I isn't dotted, so text 26, Om Agana Timirandasya Gana Gana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. A spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my most humble obeisances to the Lord's feet, my spiritual master. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It says text 26. Mam chayo vyabhacharina bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So Prabhupada's going to help us. Full devotional service does not fall down. Okay. Prabhupada's purport. This verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question. And that third question Arjuna asked in previous verses is, what is the means to attain to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna's activities are known as Bhakti Yoga. No, Krishna activities. Okay, activities in Krishna consciousness are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions such as Ram and Narayan. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge, and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So, if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, he can overcome them easily. This is already explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire the equality of Krishna. This isn't a do-it-yourself program. Oh no, I'm being dive-bombed again. Somehow there's another stinging hornet in here. Well, let's try to ignore it for a little while. So it's not a do-it-yourself program, you know. It's like, how do we even know anything about Krishna? We've heard from someone, and it's very rarely that someone hears directly from Krishna. Arjuna is hearing directly from Krishna, but for 99.99999% of everybody else, we hear in a line of succession. We hear from someone else. And then we begin to be able to, the connection with Krishna starts to awaken. So it's not like a do-it-yourself. There has to be, like, this is Prabhupada. Prabhupada's teaching. We're hearing from Prabhupada about Krishna. To be Krishna conscious or in devotional service means to acquire equality of Krishna. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, and the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of a gold mine. Thus, the living entity's spiritual position is as good as gold, as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues, otherwise there is no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual person. Otherwise, there's no meaning of Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. Yeah, you're not on the same page. You're not in the same transcendental position as Krishna, you can't serve Krishna. You have to be in that transcendental position to actually serve Krishna. Although everyone's serving Krishna. The Prabhupada's talking about here is in consciousness of Krishna directly. Well, everyone's serving Krishna, but indirectly, influenced by the three modes of material nature, like that. But the Prabhupada's talking about actually serving Krishna. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire qualifications. The qualification is to become Brahman, or freed from all material contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, Brahmaiva san Brahmapyeti. One can attain the supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as individual soul. So that's where the impersonalists get stuck. I'm Brahman, but I'm not an individual. And Prabhupada's explaining so clearly here that you have to be the same quality of Brahman, but keep the individuality, so there's a relationship with the Supreme Brahman. And that's where the impersonalist gets stuck. It's all Brahman. Prabhupada says, no. Yes, it's all Brahman, but there's individuality. That's why there's a relationship. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Ooh, this is a big one here. This is nice. 27. This is Krishna speaking. Brahmano hi pratistaham amritas yas yayasya cha sasvatas ya cha dharmasya sukhasya ikan tikasya cha. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness, and which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. What is it? Sat, Chit, Ananda, Vigraha. So Sat is the eternal nature. Sat. Everything comes from the Sat, the eternal nature. Chit is knowledge. Sat, Chit, Ananda, bliss, ecstasy, and Vigraha, form. I am the form of Sat, Chit, Ananda, Vigraha. But Sat is the foundation. Everything's spiritual. It's all spiritual energy. Sat. It's immortal, imperishable, and eternal. Prabhupada explains, the constitution of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma, the Supersoul, is the middle, the second stage in transcendental realization. The Lord within the heart. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the Absolute Truth. Krishna. Therefore, both Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. Another way I've heard it described is like a person's in a distance. A person like sees a mountain. Wait, how does it go? Yeah. That's like Brahman realization. From a distance you see the mountain. And then as you head toward it, you can make out that it is a mountain. there's things on it. Like you can see, oh, there's rocks, there's trees. And then you enter the mountain. You actually can go to the mountain and you're there on the mountain. So the Brahman, the Paramatma, and then the Bhagavad. Something like that. Both Paramatma and impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. They're just kind of like lesser realizations of the Absolute. It is explained in the 7th chapter that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with the fragments of the superior nature, and that is the spiritual touch in the material nature. When a living entity conditioned by this material nature begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. So, why I know all of this? Why do you keep reading it? What, let's read something else more exciting. It's kind of like saying, well, I'm already chanting Hare Krishna. Why do I have to keep saying Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna? Hare Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya. This attainment of the Brahman conception of life is the first stage in self-realization. At this stage, the Brahman realized person is transcendental to the material position, but he is not actually perfect in Brahman realization. If he wants, he can continue to stay in the Brahman position and then gradually rise up to Paramatma realization and then to the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of this in Vedic literature. The 4 Kumaras were situated first in the impersonal Brahman conception of truth, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. So this gradual development, And Prabhupada, his mission is for the benefit and the upliftment of all of human society. And not everyone can immediately just go right into ecstatic love of Godhead. So he's preaching, he's explaining that there is a process. See, his mission is to transform the world. His books are meant to bring about a revolution in the consciousness. In the middle of Kali Yuga, which is in the deepest, darkest modes of passion and ignorance, all kinds of horrible things going on. His books are meant to bring about a revolution. So, he's teaching how everyone. They take to this process, first Brahman realization, then Paramatma, and they can reach, but that's the perfect. He's teaching a science, a process for re-spiritualizing the entire world, no matter how somebody's situated, no matter what religion they're following. There are many examples of this, rising up through this. The 4 Kumaras were situated first in impersonal Brahman conception, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. One who cannot elevate himself beyond the impersonal conception of Brahman runs the risk of falling down. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that although a person may rise to the stage of impersonal Brahman without going farther, with no information of the Supreme Person, his intelligence is not perfectly clear. Therefore, in spite of being raised to the Brahman platform, there is the chance of falling down if one is not engaged in devotional service to the Lord. In the Vedic language, it is also said, Raso Vaisa Rasaham Hi Evayam Lavanananti Bhavati. When one understands the personality of God, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendentally blissful. Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences. When a devotee approaches him, there is an exchange of these 6 opulences. The servant of the king enjoys on an almost equal level with the king, and so eternal happiness, imperishable happiness, eternal life, accompany devotional service. Therefore, realization of Brahman, or eternity, or imperishability, is included in devotional service. This is already possessed by a person who is engaged in devotional service. How powerful devotional service to the personality of Godhead is. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Now, there's a lot of power and potency and ecstasy involved in realizing spirit without the personality of Godhead, even just that everything's spiritual. These Brahman realization, Aham Brahmasmi. It's like a switch. Ahamkara, I am this material body and mind, and Omkara, I'm spirit, or Aham Brahmasmi, I'm spirit, I'm not this body. There's a huge amount of energy released there, a huge amount. So if somebody just stays like that, Prabhupada's saying there's danger that they can fall down. They can be shaken out of that position. And again, Ahankara, again. The living entity, although Brahman by nature, has the desire to lord it over the material world, and due to this he falls down. Although Brahman by nature wants to lord it over material world, and due to this he falls down. Yeah. Krishna's there. Not you, me. Not you, no, me. Okay, here's something to play with. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. In his constitutional position, a living entity is above the 3 modes of material nature. But association with material nature entangles him in different modes of material nature. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. Due to the association of these 3 modes, his desire to dominate the material world is there. By engagement in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, he is immediately situated in transcendental position, and his unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. Therefore, the process of devotional service, beginning with hearing, chanting, remembering, and the other prescribed 9 methods of realizing devotional service, should be practiced in the association of devotees. Hare Krishna. So, to blaspheme the devotees who dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord, there's going to be a problem. that this hearing, chanting, remembering should be practiced in the association of devotees. Gradually, by such association, by the influence of a spiritual master, one's material desire to dominate is removed. One becomes firmly situated in the Lord's transcendental, loving service. This method is prescribed from the 22nd to the last verse of this chapter. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. One should always gauge in the service of the Lord, should eat remnants of foodstuff offered to the deity, smell the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, see the places where the Lord has his transcendental pastimes, read of the different activities of the Lord, his reciprocation of love with his devotees, chant always the transcendental vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Observe fasting days commemorating the appearances and disappearances of the Lord and his devotees. By following such a process, one becomes completely detached from all material activities. One who can thus situate himself in the Brahma Jyoti is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in quality. Prabhupada's really clear about that. No, I have to be honest. I am not engaged in worshiping the deity in the temple. But I am meditating on the devotees who are worshiping the deities in the temple. I'm doing what I need to do to hear and chant and remember Krishna. And that is like from a little distance. But I offer my humble obeisances and my respects, and I'm eternally grateful for those that are doing that service. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay. Stay on the path.